achieve high user adoption. So some of the top tips I'm going to be sharing with you are from our Consultancy Skills Programme. So I've taken a snippet of content from there and thought, it's a great topic. It's something we're talking about and presenting at events about as well. And there's lots of different things that influence how to get people involved. So I'll be talking about the wider context, but then honing in on a very specific area for today. And as a consultant myself, I've been involved working with clients and implementing Salesforce for other people since 2012 now. So throughout that experience, I've realised there's so many different facets that are involved in ensuring you help a client achieve customer success, really. And customer success is all about them using Salesforce well. It is about customer adoption. If they don't adopt it, then the solution will fail for the business, and the project that you've worked on as a consultant will technically fail. So on my journey, I started out as an administrator. I was running a non-profit at the time, and I became the administrator for my own system for my team because I loved sort of getting hands dirty. But when I started working with other clients and taking that knowledge and imparting it with them, I realized there was a lot more to CRM implementations than just having the technical Salesforce skills. And that led me on a journey to kind of understand, well, what does CRM consultancy mean? What skills do I need to have? And that led me to then do qualifications in business analysis, in agile project management, in change management. And also since 2005, I've been a certified NLP and business coach as well, which I think those skills I still bring to the table now as a consultant. And hand on heart, I don't feel I could do my job properly without having those certifications and that knowledge as a consultant supporting implementations. And the other course that I did, and we teach on the Consultancy Skills Programme, it's not available now, but Salesforce did a week-long consultancy course at that time. They did package it around the Sales Cloud or Service Cloud certs, but it was very much how do you consult with a client, and really reflected on technical design and the things you should think about when you're designing a solution. And it was brilliant, and I still use all of that knowledge now and in my framework, and I teach that now to other people. And I didn't get that level of knowledge from these other courses that I did. So that's what I'd recommend for any sort of administrator that is going to be advising a client on their Salesforce implementation, because what it is managing people along that process. And that's what we're talking about today is, how do you encourage high user adoption? And that is about bringing people along that journey with you. So we're going to dig down into change management today and some of those different kind of key outcomes, and work through to reflect back on what does that mean in practical sense. How do I support people? Because yes, you can have a chat with them and you can do it, but there is a science and there's a considered approach to it. And the reason I've put the POPIT model on the slides now, the POPIT model I learned about on the business analysis course, and it kind of consolidates what I was talking about a moment ago, in that you can have Salesforce technical skills, which, if you like, is about the information technology as part of this triangle quadrant you can see here. You've got that at the heart. But when you're implementing a CRM system, it's the POPIT model that visualizes the important aspects for me. There's 4 aspects of a business system that you need to analyze during a CRM project, and that is the organization, the processes, and the people. So today we're focused on people. We're going to have upcoming webinars over the next few months looking at organisation and processes and IT in more detail with a different side of slant. But on any project, there's skill sets around these 4 areas that you need to apply to a project if you're kind of helping an organisation move forward with Salesforce. So when you're looking at high user adoption, so there's quite a lot of principles involved in this, but some of the areas that you would want to consider is, what are the business goals and motivations? That's what my first question is that I'd ask. And you might say, well, what's that got to do with high user adoption? Well, you've got to got to know where this project is going overall and what their motivations are, because that will give you a sense of how you need to communicate with the client and the teams you're going to be engaging with. You need to echo what those business goals and motivations are and keep reinforcing them in your language all the way through that project and those workshops that you're delivering, or one-to-one interviews. You need to reiterate them, because that's how people make decisions. That's how you get people to prioritize. That's how you get people focused on the end goal, and they see the big picture. And one of the biggest aspects of change management is either you create a vision for change, or you communicate the burning platform. Like, if you don't do this, this might happen. The organization may not be there anymore. That's obviously a slightly harder picture to paint. It will motivate some people, but it will motivate other people to potentially leave. So it's not always a favored one. But if you can create a vision for change, that's the other kind of picture that you want to create, to say, look, the business has communicated they want to achieve X, Y, Z. This is why they're motivated to do it. This is why I'm sat down here with you today. Like, how can I work with you and your team to help work towards this bigger objective? And they see the bigger picture, and sometimes that's not always visible to them. And so you kind of want to make sure that you're reinforcing it as much as possible to support user adoption. The second aspect to consider is organizational culture. And this is considering the type of culture that organization has, and whether it's, there's 4 different cultures we look at in the course, but in the simplest sense, is it top down, bottom up, sideways, or chaotic? There's 4 different sort of types of approaches you could take with this, and for each type of culture you would take a different approach to supporting adoption. So a top-down organization would be very much like, this is the way you're going to do it, whether you like it or not, because it's a top-down message, and you would need to echo that in your language, around, not obviously as harshly as that, but you'd need to be considerate of that and how they want to communicate and manage people, and you need to apply that to your styles, I guess. Or if it's bottom up, then that's more of an embryonic environment, but that allows you to perhaps communicate back up to the team and say, well, look, I've been engaging with this team today, they've said X, Y, Z, and then that allows you to feed back up what the requirements are from bottom up, which may influence the decisions made at the top, and that might then encourage high user adoption, because they feel people are listening and responding to their needs, which is very different to actually being told that this is the system you're going to have and this is how they're going to work. So it's just considering, your culture. You need to encourage and achieve high user adoption within the confines of the culture they want to achieve going forward. And they may achieve a changing culture as a result of having the system. So you need to be mindful of that with them too. And then the other aspect of this is around the individuals that you come across on your project. And you will need to consider your approaches based on personality types, emotional states, which are the thing that we're going to delve into today, and then learning styles. So on our change management course, we very much look at the different personality types and the way that you might support those different people. We look at the different emotional states and the ways that you might support how people are feeling about the CRM project, or the way they the way they are feeling basically, and how you then bring them along to support them and get them on board and enthused. And then learning styles is the way that they learn, and there's 4 different learning styles. So depending on that, you'd mix up your training and learning approach to make sure that you're accommodating for all those different styles of learners. So you need to come up with a plan that looks at all these different areas and helps you think through, well, how do I achieve high user adoption within this client, within the people I'm working with, within the organization that I'm working with, and what tools do I use? And you're not going to come up with that alone. It's really important that you work with the client on agreeing that, because you need to make sure that the approach that you take is aligned with, as I say, their culture and their preferred approach. So today I'm going to dig into the emotional states content. And I was having a bit of a chuckle when I put this together last night, and really felt that it very much aligned with parenting experiences for those of you that are parents. But I'm sure, you know, I probably have the same thing with my dad as well. But it's I'm going to use the metaphors accordingly, because I think it just helps you realise that, you know, a lot of this stuff you probably know about already, but when you sort of box it down into, you know, theories, if you like, or areas of consideration, it's easier to sort of go, right, okay, I get it, it's black and white, you know, this is what I need to think about and apply accordingly. So when you're managing people to change their behavior, one of the ways that you can approach this is through behavioral reward and punishment. So I've put a kid with an ice cream here because in our house it does feel very much that we lead with this type of approach to change your behavior. Like, it's very much around, we'll give you a chocolate if you do this, and kind of move people along. So we're very much a reward culture in our house to some degree, which I don't always think is a good thing, but they do that at schools as well, right? You know, you have reward charts, you know, so you could take an approach on your project where individuals are motivated by rewards and individuals will avoid punishments. This is one approach to change. And this can be good for those that, you know, aren't necessarily emotionally het up with the CRM. You know, they might be looking forward to it, but there might be also people that are quite passive to it, and that they're kind of not bothered and they're not quite sure why, what's in it for them. So you might use this approach where you need to get people's attention. You might need to say, look, if you start doing X, Y, Z, you're going to achieve X, Y, Z. And they're like, oh, okay, now I get it. Now I'll pay attention. I'll focus, because you'll get certain types of people that you're engaging with. And one of those types of groups of people is called sleepers. And you need to wake them up. You need to get their attention. You need to give them something that's going to motivate them to move forward. So having a rewards type process might be important to your client and the way that you want to work. So some of the possible interventions that you can do here are maybe about recognition. So you might recognize people that, you know, gamification comes into this. Maybe do trailheads. You know, you could set them a trailhead and get them working to understand what Salesforce is, and then you could celebrate the number of points they've got. You know, that's one example. Works for some clients, doesn't work for others. And that's sort of about learning Salesforce, if you like. Some people might want to be a Salesforce champion, and they might see that as a reward for them because maybe it's part of their career progression. So it might be about, you know, one of the rewards could be about their role in the Salesforce project. The other type of reward here is using Salesforce for the way that it should be used. So the mantra that I've always taught from that training course that I did with Salesforce back in 2010 was, if it's not in Salesforce, it doesn't exist. So say, for example, you're working with a sales team and they, you know, they had a commission structure. You know, you would say, right, we're going to use Salesforce and Salesforce dashboards to tell us exactly how much commission you are owed each month. And that's where we're going to then reward you with your financial bonus, for example, because we can see it in Salesforce. So you can motivate people by embedding Salesforce within their contracts or within their performance frameworks and giving them a reward. So you're not, you know, you're not adding any new reward, if you like, but what you're doing is setting the reward framework within Salesforce itself, which means that people are going to use it because that's how they get their commission. And you'll look at their dashboard as part of their performance management framework. So you can embed it. There's quite two very different examples there, but one is about not necessarily giving new rewards, but giving it in a new way because it's based on using Salesforce every day. Or it's about a reward based on their role and enthusiasm for learning Salesforce as a product. So you can, you know, train people up on it, give them the opportunity to learn new skills, get new trailhead badges, you know, see that they are using Salesforce well because they're putting all their data in it and you're rewarding them in the way that you would normally do, but through using Salesforce. And then reflecting a bit more on compliance side, and again, this depends on the organizational culture, but you might well change people's contracts and performance frameworks to be very clear that if they do not put data in Salesforce, then they can no longer do their job. And that compliance might be because maybe from a GDPR or security point of view, it's a breach of that, in which case it's obviously a very serious incident. in which case they would be sacked from their job if they didn't abide by it. And so again, you've got this individual will avoid punishment sort of scenario. And it's the expected way of working. People have to log their timesheets because that will, they'll get their pay as a result of it, etc. So you might look at sort of more compliance type approaches, and making sure that it's in those to avoid punishment. So that's the first one. The second one is around cognitive positive reframing, and this is where you're coaching people and supporting them. So I used a picture of a kid on a bike here because my daughter's busy trying to we bought her a new bike, so she's no longer using stabilizers. So it's very much this approach of, she's scared, she's nervous, and we're coaching her along on the bike, hence the metaphor there. But this type of person will be worried about learning new technology. There'll be the tech phobes. There'll be the person that's got so much work on their plate that learning a new thing and fitting it in is gonna, they're feeling quite emotional about the situation. They're questioning why it's important, and they might have limiting beliefs and feelings about it. So identifying those people is obviously important, so you can start bringing them through. But the thing I very much do throughout all of my consultancy work is keep coming back to those business goals and motivations, but also it's having a conversation with them about, how could this help you in your job? And once you've had a conversation with them about how Salesforce, what are their pain points right now? What is their concerns? Okay, well, let's go through what Salesforce can do and what it can help you with. Then that's when you start reframing their mindset, because they might be, they might be so stressed at work right now, they're working 9 till 8 every night because they've got so much admin to do. But if you get that conversation with them that says, look, this is going to save you 3 hours of work every day, which means that you're then going to get home on time, which we've actually seen, achieve with clients, is they have less admin to do. They're like, hell yeah, give me it tomorrow, like I want it. And that's positive reframing. So it's working with them on visioning, it's working with them on looking at what their goals are, what their measures of success are, how the system can help them. We coach, we provide NLP coaching skills on our consultancy course. It's something I'm very passionate about, and I've also trained up my director in that. But if you have coaching skills, that's really important to add into this, because you can coach people through this process and help reframe them from, there's nothing more rewarding than working with a client and a team where you've got people who are nervous, and at the end of it they're like, this is going to change my life, and that's amazing. Like, that is the most rewarding thing that you can have as a consultant. It's really great that you've helped improve somebody's positivity and that you've given them real confidence and self-esteem that they can use the system and it's going to help them. So that's what is great. So just be aware of it and acknowledge it, but use the tools and interventions that I put on this slide to kind of move people through that journey. The third one is the psychodynamic emotional engagement. And these are the people that are just, devastated. They're going through what we call the Kubler-Ross grief cycle, and this grief cycle is actually quite relevant to how a lot of people are probably feeling about COVID right now. They're going through this period of denial, anger, depression, bargaining, acceptance. It's also very relevant when I take stuff off my kids, my toys or the dummy or whatever they want, and they go through this sort of grief cycle on a much smaller framework. But we kind of go through the denial, the anger, the depression, the slamming of the bedroom door, and then you go through to bargaining and acceptance, and again you kind of go through this cycle every day, and it doesn't, putting it in context to going, actually there's a process here, we just need to take people through this, kind of helps make sense of it, if you like. Now, where I've seen this in practice is, people who love their spreadsheets, and they're devastated about this system. They're just not, they just want to keep working the way they're going to work, but for whatever reason, this system has to come into place, or they might have had previous history where they've been through a digital transformation before and it's gone wrong, or worse still, they've worked with Salesforce before and they don't like it and it didn't work for them. Now, it might have been a bad implementation or whatever, but there's baggage. So you're going to have people in your room, and this is, to be honest, I had a client, which is quite a big or a big client for me at that time, and I had somebody who was this type of person who kept sabotaging my workshops. Like, he kept going off on a real rant, a really negative rant. And then that's what probed me to do the change management workshop, because I was like, I need to know how to deal with this. I need to know how to engage with that person, or engage with my client and help that person work out a solution. And also the reality of a new CRM system might be that people might be losing their jobs over it, you know, so there might be an element of counselling here. Not saying as a consultant it may not be your role to counsel them. I think it's something you need to bounce back to the client, and you need to make them aware of, that this is happening and there is somebody going through this level of distress, if you like. And you need to work with the client on helping people through this process. So you should never take this on your own, because it's obviously people who are, you know, are really quite upset about this journey. And that, you know, it takes a bit more than positive reframing, if you like. But, you know, I'd take on the same approach to, I would still apply a cognitive positive reframing and try and work with that, but they might need more than what you would be able to offer from that. They might need a counsellor, they might need to have that chat with their manager, they might need to have those honest conversations I've put in here, because yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've just had my course actually with my consultancy trainees, and one of the ladies on there was absolutely saying this is, you know, people left the organisation with her CRM project because they didn't want to get on board with a new system. And that's exactly what will happen. And it happened in the client that I was talking about a moment ago before, that triggered me to learn all of this in the first place. You know, he did end up leaving because he didn't want to get on board with a new system because of his baggage. And so it is those honest conversations. But what's really important about this is you nip it in the bud as soon as reasonably possible, because what happened for me is that was sabotaging my workshops and the positivity in the room, because there was some people that were truly very upset or not engaged in this process. So if you've got people that are in this particular situation, you need to work with your client, as I say, to facilitate an outcome one way or the other, and move them up the cycle from, you know, being angry and depressed about the situation through to bargaining and acceptance. And that acceptance might be they get on board with it because maybe you've managed to reframe it, which is obviously very rewarding if you can do that. Or it might be about them deciding that they definitely have a blockage and they need to move on to somewhere else. And then the final one here is around humanistic development and growth of individuals. And this is, I put the little dancers on the stage because I think it's, you know, it's great when kids get hold of something they love and they want to really be successful at it. But it's giving them and supporting them to learn, and, you know, giving them options to learn. Like, I truly believe that, you know, the kids that love something rather than being pushed into something, you know, that's when they really enjoy it. And yes, you have to kind of probe them, but, you know, there's nothing worse than taking a kid to gymnastics every week, as I found out, because she really didn't want to go. And my husband's like, take her, you know, she has to learn. It's like, well, you know, there's different things. Now she goes to things that she really loves, you know, it's finding those things that they really excel at. So hopefully you'll have, again, these people in your team, because obviously you want more positive people than not, who kind of see this as a real opportunity for them. And they acknowledge that they're, you know, they might be a little bit scared, but they might be excited, they might be intrigued, you know, they feel like they have a choice, to a certain extent. They may not have a choice of using the system or not, but they have a choice about how they learn about the system. They might have a choice to learn as much as they want to, and maybe take the opportunity to become a Salesforce champion, for example. You know, so it's giving them the opportunity to learn and flourish, and that they feel that there's open communication. Now, one of the things to be mindful of, and it's something else that we cover on the change management course, is that there is the theory, and a proven theory, that people will only really achieve self-actualization if they've got security. And, you know, that might be financial security or personal security, and that loving and belonging. So that's why we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, is that they can only move to that level if they actually have everything else secure between them. So again, just reflecting our conversation we just had in the last call, you know, some people are on furlough right now. but they might not be able to step into this role where they're learning and feeling like they're achieving because they're perhaps concerned about their financial security. So, you know, it's just being mindful of that. So if you're working with a client and you're trying to sort of progress people, it's just worth talking to the client about, you know, how is the organization shaping? Maybe, you know, it's obviously sensitive areas sometimes, but just address and understand if this is all stable and in place. And we touched at that much more in the course, but it's just something to be mindful of, that it's not always on your shoulders as the consultant, and you might not be the one failing. If you feel like you're failing, it might not be because of you, it might be a load of other stuff going on in that person's life, maybe to do with work, maybe not. But the interventions you can put into place is to just keep having communication channels with them, give people the chance to learn and develop their knowledge themselves, you know, address their personal needs and understand, goes back to that point about what is important to them and how can you help them be successful in their job role, and how can you help them learn, you know, what is their preferred learning style and how can you support them to achieve it. You know, keep having that. And if you give them stuff to do, then you're encouraging them to take self-responsibility. So if they don't take that self-responsibility and learn, then that's on their shoulders. But some people love this ability and opportunity, and that's where we see, you know, we call them accidental admins, right? But a lot of people become accidental admins because they suddenly find, oh, there's all this great stuff that I can learn that I didn't know about before. So, you know, as I said, so there isn't a one size fits all with how you support user adoption. Hopefully that's been a bit insightful as to sort of 4 things you can think about and things that you might need to navigate on your specific projects. But encouraging user adoption is broader than that. It goes back to, you know, the business goals and motivations. Like if they're trying to reduce costs, then obviously there's going to be a level of demotivation maybe in the team, or concern, because people might be thinking, oh, they're trying to cut our jobs out to reduce money. Or if it might be about growing the organization, in which case people might be really excited because it's all about growth. You know, so you just need to work out what their goals are, what the culture is, and what the individual who the individuals are, and how you best support them through building a strategy for change management, and that supports different personalities, different emotional states, and different learning styles. And if you have that considered approach, that will give you the best chance of a high adoption, and that will achieve positive business outcomes for the business as well as also the CRM project, and that's what you want to achieve. So let me know if there's any questions throughout that. Whilst you're thinking of any questions, I can just talk a little bit more. So please do ask any questions in the Q&A panel if you have any. So I can check in on questions in a moment. So if any of you are interested in the Consultancy Skills Programme, as I've talked about, we have a 12-month membership programme where you get access to a load of content I've put together around business analysis, change management, agile project management, and also we give you BA scripts for Service Cloud and Sales Cloud, and also MPSP and volunteers for Salesforce. So we talk you through all the questions you'd ask the customer, and you know, how to run a design workshop. So you've got all the tools there to run design workshops confidently. Think about all the things you need to think about. And we also give fortnightly NLP coaching training as well, live. So it's all content that's accessible on demand, so you can study at your own pace with a certain number of hours a week. I run weekly 1-hour group coaching sessions, and we might have guest speakers as well, where people can bring questions along to the group, and we delve into different content. We look at different perspectives of it. We look at real life scenarios. So just really consolidating that knowledge. And then we also have, you know, it's a peer mentoring environment as well. So we have a chatter group where everybody can help each other. The point of the 12 months is that for the first sort of 4 months, you might be learning all the content. But what we want you to do is then learn it and apply it in practice, and to kind of be bringing those questions back in, so we can continue to support you on your journey. Because, you know, whatever size of client we have and I work with, there'll always be a different scenario. And you know, it could be a 4-man project, 4-man team, but the scenario and the approach you have to take could be completely different. So we want to give you a structure where, you know, now you might have no structure or no process or no particular way of tackling a project. what we give you as part of the course is a clear structure, clear approach, clear documentation, which would result then in a great solution and high engagement with the client. And you'll have overall, you and the client will have a greater understanding about the approach that you take to a Salesforce project. So if we can help you with that, then, you know, we'd be happy to help you get started with learning more consultancy skills. But hopefully that has been useful for you today, and something to think about. I've got a question in the chat, so let me just navigate to that a moment. How important is executive sponsorship of a CRM, and at which stage is it most important? So that's a really good question. So executive sponsorship is important right at the very beginning of the project, because it's part of the thing around communication. It goes back, it feeds in, it's aligned with that business goals and motivations. So an executive sponsor would take the role of communicating the business goals and motivation to the rest of the organization in advance of a consultant then coming in. The consultant should echo and continue to reinforce what the executive sponsor has communicated to the rest of the organization about why it's important. It should never come from your mouth as a consultant, really, and people go, oh really, okay, great. It should be the executive sponsor. So the executive sponsor's role is very much to make sure there's budget and resources, as well as also making sure that there's a clear communication strategy and people are informed about why it's important, what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, and putting in place, or, you know, helping you put in place, I say you because there could be a wider team here, but putting, you know, helping the implementation team put in those interventions or a range of those implementations that we've talked about. So it's so important. If you don't have an exec sponsor, the CRM project will typically fail quite often. You know, it won't get the momentum that it deserves going forward. So thank you for your question, Panjit. So thank you very much for joining today. I think we're just on 3 o'clock. So that's a short, sharp, sweet half an hour. Appreciate there's a lot of webinars at the moment, so thank you for joining today, and I hope that was really useful for you. As I say, we will have another one coming up in a month's time, but if you want to get in touch with us about the consultancy course, then you can do by downloading the pack from our website and booking a call with the team. Otherwise, I hope that's taught you something new today, and you can go and apply it tomorrow in your projects. So thank you very much for joining, and we'll see you all again soon. Thanks everyone, take care.